Let's do some grafting. First off, grafting has always been on my bucket list, something I've always wanted to try, and now I have the opportunity. You see these guys? We call these scions. These are young twigs cut from one tree, and they are meant to be grafted to another tree. If you don't mean to graft them on another tree, then they're just twigs. These ones I cut from a plum. What I plan to do is graft them onto my existing nectarine tree. Let's go! Everything I do today is purely from online research and a part of my hobby as a gardener. This small branch is where I plan to do my graft, and I'm trying to pair it up with a similar sized scion. Then I prepare the branch by cutting it short and close to the main branch. While maintaining good control of my grafting knife, I cut a wedge into my graft site. Good control in this step is important to avoid injury and improper preparation of the graft site. Also, before using your tools, make sure they are cleaned and sanitized. You don't want cross-contamination or infection of your graft. Here I am whittling the end of my scion to a thin point with a flat edge. It's also good to have your exposed edge the same length as your wedge cut at your graft site. Now once I have a nice thin wedge, I cut a little sliver on the other side to expose the cambium layer there. Going back to my graft site, I insert my scion into the wedge, making sure it's a nice tight fit. It is important that the exposed layers make good contact with one another. I'm also making small adjustments, making sure that my cambium layers are lined up and touching one another. Then I wrap the graft with grafting tape, making sure that my scion doesn't move on me. That contact is very important in the success of this graft. I cut the rest of my scion, leaving 2 or 3 buds, and then I wrap the rest of the scion with grafting tape. This is to help the scion so that it doesn't dry up so fast and die. We're going to keep on wrapping it all the way up to the tip, making sure that it is covered. Then I'm adding electrical tape to the graft site for some added support and protection. You just never know what could happen. Wind or a bird can mess it all up. Foil is another layer of support. The shiny material reflects the sun rays. It's also added protection from moisture loss. If successful, you're going to want to know where and what you grafted, so add a tag. This next graft is a bark graft. It's done by cutting into the bark, exposing the cambium, and inserting your scion to make contact with that cambium. Now at this point you might be asking, why is he doing all this? And for me, it's just for fun. If I succeed, I'm gonna have plums growing on my nectarine tree. So here I've made a T-cut into the bark. I'm not exactly sure why they do that, but from what I gather, better success rates come from grafting methods that have a protective layer and act as a placeholder at the same time. Here I am lifting up the bark, exposing the cambium layer. After preparing my scion just like I did before, I insert it into my graft site, the exposed edge facing inward toward the cambium. To finish it off, I wrap it up in grafting tape, and just like I did before, add electrical tape for support, wrap the whole scion to prevent water loss, then cover the whole thing up with foil to protect it from the elements. This next one I wanted to try out because I got a new toy. Essentially, this tool makes the same size cut on your scion and your grafting site. So on one side, you're going to be cutting in a cavity. This is where your branch will be inserting. Pretty nifty, right? We'll see about that. Okay, so on the other side, you'll be making the opposite cut. And this cut will give you the shape that you will be inserting into your scion. I think you can also do it the other way around, but whatever, same difference. Insert that into my scion and make sure everything is lining up. Gonna do the whole shebang, tape it up, protect it from the elements, blah blah blah. Anyways, I wasn't quite sold on this tool. Who knows, it may or may not work, but the only reason why I wasn't quite sold on it was because it didn't really feel like it was holding in place as good as the other grafts. Okay, so here's the last graft. I'm gonna try to graft a smaller scion onto a larger branch. This is pretty much the same as the first graft I did. The only difference is that when I make my cut into the branch, I try to make it the same diameter as my scion. Insert my prepared scion into that wedge and same thing, finish it off with some grafting tape. I'm gonna do the whole 9 yards. Also here, I want to protect that thicker branch, so I need to make sure that I cover that open end. Using electrical tape for some added protection, cutting the scion, then making sure I wrap that scion in grafting tape, and of course protect it from the elements with some foil. Wish me luck, guys. Also, if there are any horticulturists or arborists watching this, please chime in. I'd love to hear your thoughts.